One of the classic ways to keep facing down, you've ironed it already, but you really want it to be super flat, is called understitching. Understitching is basically what you do is take the facing piece, pull it up out of the way, up high, up above the, here it is, up there, and you're going to only be sewing on the seam allowance, the raw seam allowance that you have left there, very close to the stitching line, but inside of it. You won't see this because when the facing folds down, it'll be on the inside. It does help keep it from riding up. I'll show you how we do that. I like to come in maybe, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch, 18 maybe, something like that. Did I say 18th? No, not 18th. 1/16 of an inch or so. Maybe, you can come out a little further if you want, but I'm going to come in about 1/16. I'm going to use basting stitches because if I mess it up, I'm going to take it out. Make sure your facing is pulled nice and tight, because the last thing you want to do is create a little bubble there. So pull it nice and tight, and just hit the gas. And go all the way around. I like to use the basting because if I created a bubble or some other issue, I can just pull it right out. But I'm going to just go around a little bit more, and so on and so forth all the way through. So here's your collar with the facing installed, with the understitching, which is here, if you can see it, a little understitching. And as I mentioned, if you do it the way I demonstrated a moment ago, when you fold this back down, you're not even going to see it. It's inside, which is nice. There's one last thing we're going to do called stitch in the ditch, which is yet another way to secure this down. But understitching is done routinely with facings, and that's how it's done. You've sewed on the you've sewed inside the seam line here, and you're using the excess seam allowance as your friend here, and then just fold it down. You can give it another iron. It's not going to go anywhere now. That's nice. You can do it the whole length. All right, we're going to flatten the seam where the facing meets the bodice, and work it with your fingers. Get it nice and flat, like as flat as you possibly can. I use a tailor's ham. You can do this on a regular flat ironing board. Tailor's ham is great because it's very useful around curves. Okay, we're going to take the iron and we're going to do this area. We're going to do a little at a time. I'm not going to show you all that. It's not, you know how to do this now. But just keep that seam super flat as you go around and iron it down. And then I'm going to show you a way to secure it so that there's no chance it's going to rise up on you. We'll do that in the next one. To totally flatten it, well, not flatten, but to secure the facing so that it will never ride up on you, or very rarely would ride up on you, there's a technique that's called stitch in the ditch. What that means is drop the needle down onto an existing seam. Usually it's the shoulder seam, which is what it is here, and we're going to sew down as best we can right on that seam. So you're stitching in the seam line itself on the outside. It's almost a top stitch, but you want to be in the seam line so it's almost invisible. Now obviously you're going to be using a thread, the same kind of thread you used elsewhere on the garment, so it should match, but even so, you want to get it as close to, and well, not just close to, you want to get it in that area, in that line. So take your time, get it very close. You don't have to go very far. You can even use a basting stitch if you want here, in case you mess it up. And let's go. And just put a few in. You don't have to go very far. That's it. That's all you got to do. Maybe do a little back stitch here. That's it. And all done. Here's the stitch in the ditch. I've used a contrasting thread so you can see it. Obviously you're going to clip away those loose threads, etc. Just clear them out of there. I missed it. Anyway, just clear them out. Get them out of there so they're not showing on the outside. And I'll do the other one later. But there it is. I'll clean that up. But it's right in the seam line. Just took my time. I used the basting stitch. I mean, because that's all you need to just hold this down. You don't have to go crazy with this. And also, go down maybe an inch, inch and a half. You do have a 2.5 inch, or well, now it's like 2.25 inch facing. So that's deep enough. And no one's going to see this anyway. If you do it in here and you're using a matching thread, no one's going to see this. It'll hold the facing down. Now, if you're still concerned about the facing rising after you've understitched it, after you've stitched in a ditch and done all those things, but you're still concerned that it might rise, just tack it down. Take a needle and thread by hand. Just be very careful. Leave any knots on the inside, on the facing itself, so that they're not visible. And just do a couple of little stitches, 1 or 2, in different strategic places.